Right, this is where I used to live. It says something about dog grooming now, but I actually lived in that first floor flat. The window at the top there, that was my parents' bedroom. That I call the window of despair, because I was considering committing suicide by jumping out of that window. What stopped me is the fact that I didn't think it would be high enough. I'd probably end up being a cripple. It was 1957, it was December 1957, when I was at Monday Street Boys School. And I was targeted by a sadistic schoolmaster who encouraged the boys to plague me, humiliate me. He did get violent quite frequently, but it was the humiliation which actually more or less pushed me over the edge. I was desperate to kill myself. And the reason Sea Change is such a controversial book, it was the people who saved me were paedophiles. An old man who lived round the corner from the school, which I will show you where I think he was living. You can't see it easily, but it says 1888 on the front of the building. This was my home. That was a window of despair, where I didn't jump, thanks to Grandad, because I was determined to have a go at it. And I can remember looking at the view down there. You could even see Christ stand down there, because that was the beacon of hope. Way down there, there's a view of Christ standing. And also in the book, I tell you that there were times when I didn't have the courage to go to school and I stayed home. On one occasion, the sadistic schoolmaster sent one of the bullies to dig me out. We came down here, went through that entry. I could see the bricks of the safe. And on the right, there's a door. He came down there, he actually opened the door. I think he would have known that there was nobody in, only me, because I was playing truant. He searched the place to find me, to see if he could find me. He didn't find me, even though he actually did open the box room where I was hiding, cringing. I feel so ashamed to think about it now, that I was cringing from this. And he went into my bedroom, which was on the other side. You can see the sunshine there, on the other side. Went into my bedroom and looked around, took note of all the things. There was a picture of an American car. I was trying to draw the DeSoto. And Dundee Space Station, remember that? I had some comics, too young really, because the Dandies and the Beanos then were considered to be more for 6, 7, 8-year-olds, not a 12-year-old. So that was something. Annuals as well. He went back into the school and to report that he couldn't find me. When I went to the school the next day, they were all waiting for me at the gate, and they all told me, in jeering, cruel, horrible, merciless cruelty, saying how he had been stood in front of the class and he was encouraged to tell all the boys about what was in my bedroom. All those things, the car, the Dundee Space Station, comics, even a sign that said private, wrongly spelled, privet, P-R-I-V. I spelled today, it was not private. It was incorrectly spelled. And pretty horrific. But I think that was when I was really... It was the impetus. If my father had a gun, because we didn't have guns, but a bullet through the mouth, a lot of American boys who are gay commit suicide because the father's a hunter. They got it, bullet through the mouth. It's 100% sure of success. 100% sure. That's what I needed. Something that was completely guaranteed to any to them. Jumping from there down here, I might have bounced, but I doubt that I would have been killed. And I would probably ended up a cripple. There was a cripple that was taken to our school several times. The boys were very nice to this cripple. I used to be very envious of him. But you see, I was considered fair game, mainly because the schoolmaster said I was fair game. And bad time, very bad. You can just see the wall is still there, and that, where the houses are now, that was the orchard. When Sandy took me to the into the orchard, it was that wall that we scaled. Not this, just here, but just round the corner there. It's the same wall. The wall goes all the way around. Oh. This is very peculiar coming here. Very strange. It's a terrible state. All this is decaying, and decaying quickly. I don't think there's going to be much left of it soon. I'd just like to go down there and look over that fence, because that is some buildings which have already been moved. Just to explain, this was a tobacconist. This was called Buckberry's, tobacconists and confectionery, sold chocolates and things. I think we paid £4 a week for that flat. I'll tell you something, right, you filming this? Yeah. I'll tell you something, being honest now. There is something about here which is very sexy to me, because this is where I had my first thrills. Now, at the Monday Street School, I was coerced into pleasuring powerful pupils. I'm not going to say that that was something I strongly objected to doing. I would have preferred the choice. That's the thing. And when I was taken to Grandad's, of course, Grandad and his friends were very happy to pleasure me. So that was a rather pleasant change. But seeing some of these lads walking about, these rough Hena lads, that is something of which I'm imprinted with. And on the gay scene, I've never been very interested in effeminate, sophisticated queens. The character in the book called Edward, that was the paedophile that owned something called Fairytale Castle on the south coast. I spent several months down there. He was posh, and I wasn't interested in him. I told him. That was okay with him. As I say, I've always been lucky with my paedophiles. There was no problem with him. He was quite happy. Somebody like old Grandad, he was an old man. He was very butch. He was one of the typical phenotypes. So there's a certain perverse something of imprintation. the rough, tough times. We just want to look over here. Can't really see. But this was removed. Yeah, that's it. Good. Now we look over. Yeah. I think a lot of these buildings are going to go the way these did, actually, because they're not getting any better. The entry we've just been up is pretty. Building over there used to be the Hina Empire Cinema. I think it's completely was demolished, but that does feature in my book, because the paedophile who organised the sex play, he actually used to have a meeting group in the back there behind the stage at one time. Whether it was in agreement with the manager or I'll never know. But we had to go to the back, and this was usually on a Sunday morning. Right, now then, we're walking now. This used to be Tag Hill. It was called Tag Hill because in the old days when horses pulled heavy loads up in carts, they would tag another horse on. There's a street over here called Mount Street, and we're going to go to where there used to be an orchard. I'm not quite sure what we're going to find there now. I'm pretty certain it won't be an orchard. So we'll just cross over the road and we'll just walk up Mount Street. Mount Street, which gives us access to the orchard I mentioned in Sea Change. The orchard is long gone. So we're now walking up Mount Street, and I think we're going to find a car park where the orchard used to be. I mentioned the orchard, and there's a boy I called in the book Sandy. He was the person who first procured me for Grandad, the paedophile who lived not far from here. And that was how it all started. But you've got to remember that this man, the paedophile, he actually saved me. I had nowhere to go. And he actually rescued me from the cruelty. But he used his influence over he and his toughest lad. In the book I called him Blubber. And it was Blubber who eventually made the January of 1958 a little bit more tolerable for me. Right, we're going now into what used to be the orchard. This is actually, the trouble is, this is all I can tell you is what it used to be like. It looks nothing like it now. It's just obviously a development of new houses. When I last came here, which was many years ago, it had been cleared and there was just a car park. And now, as you can see, it's actually a development. So the whole thing is a bit... So I think what I'd like to do now is to take where I think Grandad lived. I think it was a house on Ray Street. Because when Sandy took me up through the orchard, he was actually following Grandad's instructions to confuse me so that I would only be able to get there through Sandy. It only took a couple of visits to Grandad's. Of course, I worked it out that in fact Grandad was right next to the school, so there was no need to do all the circumnavigation. So I think what we'll do now is we'll go to where I think he lived. So I've been thrown actually by the fact that this has changed so. Okay, well, now we're getting near to where Grandad lived. I'll tell you, it was a terrace house. It was covered in ivy. I think it was derelict. It's possible he was squatting there, but he always had a fire going. He had plenty of coal, and he was a retired coal miner. You can always tell that because of the way he spoke. That most working class people from Hena spoke the same way. Old men, I don't like that. And when I told him that I was wanting to commit suicide and tell him about jumping out of the window, he said, "Well, money to that, lad. A dead lad can do no, the live lad can do something." So, car coming now. It's all right turning on. So, if you look over here, as well as I can remember, when we came out of the orchard, I keep talking about an orchard which no longer exists. This is where it gets very difficult. But after the orchard came allotments. So somewhere here, where these new houses are, used to be allotments. And so this Sandy would trace me around the allotments, and we get onto a dirt track, and then we'd come to the back of Grandad's house, which I believe was somewhere there, and I'm pointing to the back of terrace houses on Ray Street. I believe that old man lived on Ray Street. Which house? I couldn't tell you. It's a very long street. There's a lot of houses. But what we can do is walk down here, and I'll show you these houses, terrace houses too. It might have been one of these even. So I'm not certain, but I would, if I were a betting man, I'd say that he lived in a house over there somewhere, which was near to the allotments. And I believe that, again, I'm guessing where the allotments are. Everything has changed. This is the problem. Somewhere like Hena, they pulled a lot of things down. They completely removed the cinema. These, you see a sign up there, it says 1880 something, 1881 I believe, Jubilee Terrace, 1887, the Jubilee of Queen Victoria. Here we have Ray Street, and it would have been a house on this side of the street. Which one, I'm not even going to begin to guess, because I could get it wrong. It could have been one of the houses over here, but I believe it was on this side. And it was in this house where nothing bad happened to me. This is why my book is controversial, because I find I'm not prepared to say that I suffered any terrible abuse. I like to say that I was used rather than abused. But he did look after me, he did protect me from the worst elements. He used his blubber, his influence over blubber. And in the January of 1958, it was a little bit easier for me than the December of 1958 when it was falling apart for me. Right, I think what we'll do now is we'd better go and look at Monday Street Boys' School, if that's still there. Be interesting to see. I think it is. It's still on Red Street now. Still there. See straight away. This is why I say that the old man didn't live far from the school. Sandy got me into a position where I thought that Grandad lived quite away from the school, but in fact it wasn't a long walk from where he lived to the school. Here we are. It's obviously been re-roofed. And in the book I do describe this walkway. But I know that when Grandad's house, somewhere over there, and I knew that you came and I discovered that the school was very close by. Eventually, of course, I got quite used to it, so I was able to get to Grandad's house without having to be guided by one of his minions. Right, do you want to come and look at these dates here? 1891, still there. Architect and builder. And it was built, of course, with the money from the Mundy family. It was Squire Mundy of the day. And there's a couple more. Family's name was Miller Mundy, so A-E-M-N, that would be Miller Mundy. I can't remember his first names. And I'm not sure what that one is for. We come now to where Mundy Street meets can't remember the name of the street, but we'll find it in a moment. Godfrey Street, that's right, Godfrey Street. The town ground was there. That's where where I was made to play football and hated it. And of course, you have to remember that a boy in those days from Hena who didn't like football, there's something wrong with he. If they don't like football, of course, a few years later, there's something wrong with a lad that can't fancy a lass. So I was doomed by this. My parents were ashamed of me. My mother, you just showed you where we lived down at Red Lion Square. She was very annoyed that and disappointed and deeply ashamed that I actually soiled my trousers quite often, because of course if I went to the lavatory there, they would kick the door and throw things over. I was urinated on one occasion. My father couldn't bring himself to even speak to me. I was a great disappointment to my father. So I got no support at home. I had nowhere to go. Again, I draw it to your attention that the old man, who we all despise, and nobody's making any excuses for what he did. There shouldn't have been a man like that there, but he was there and he protected me from all this abuse. Maybe we should we'll look into the playground anyway, because I'll tell you a little bit more about the playground. There's no nice flowers in those days. This is all new. They've allowed this garden to grow, which is very nice. Yeah. A few years before I went to Mundy Street in the 1940s, I was there in 1955, and I stayed until 1958. But a few years in the 40s, there were two very large trees in this playground, which made it, in old photographs, it certainly softened it a bit. But it was like it is now, when I was a student here, a pupil. But this has terrible memories for me. It's all these pretty colours and a little bit of foliage there. There was nothing like that. It was hard, and it's a bit like somebody going back to Belsen or concentration camp, really, because it's very emotional for me to come back here. That was the school's master's room, that one there, and it's pretty grim. Can't really talk too much about it. I was invited back to Mundy Street School. I contacted the head teacher and told him that I'd written a book. It was Hina School Days. This was my social history, in which I, of course, only told part of the story of all that happened. In Sea Change, I tell the whole story. So that was clear. But anyway, the head teacher, he welcomed me, and he was appalled to hear about all this. And I remember apologising to him that I really, wouldn't want to embarrass him to say what terrible things happened. He said a school is only what's in it, the people who are in it. It was a culture of cruelty then. It was certainly a culture of kindness when I was shown around this school back in the late 1990s. And so that was all right. And he took me inside, and of course, again, that was quite an emotional experience, especially when we went into that room, which is where I suffered the worst abuse. The jeering, the chanting, and a general feeling that I just didn't want to live. The people who plan to commit suicide, they are very, very desperate. I can tell you because I've been there. And it takes you into a very dark place. Yeah. Anyway, shall we just go up to the marketplace and then I don't think we'll bother with the town ground. There's no point. One town ground looks much like another, doesn't it? So if we go back here, I can talk a little bit about some of the happier memories, because we'll look at, you can see where the post office is there. We'll see where I first heard Billy Fury singing Maybe Tomorrow, and it was in there, which was a marvellous contrast to the horrible hymns, All Glory, Lord, and what's it, to the lips of children made sweet hosannas ring. That was a hymn that we had to sing over and over again. It was obviously the head's favourite at the time, and every time I hear that hymn, it almost sends me into a spiral of suicidal depression again. It's horrible. I hate hymns, and I'm very hostile towards all religions now as well, for that matter. Anyway. Right, the post office there used to be the Market Cafe. And this is during the happier days when I went to school at Howick down the hill. Probably should go down there and eventually. And when I'd escaped from Monday Street, this was when I was about 14. It was after I'd already severed my connections then with Grandad and his pals. So I got that behind me, and I was at a marvellous school, Howick, run by a woman called Mrs. Mary McLennan, who was an angel to me. In fact, I think she did a lot more than I realised. I was involved with this group of paedophiles. As a child, of course, I'm talking about 12, 13 years old. I think she was instrumental in getting me out of it. But anyway, when I was going to the Hina, if you can imagine, it was a cafe. It was in two parts. You can see the two parts. The first part was the jukebox, snack bar. The other one was the restaurant. Well, I used to go into the restaurant to have my dinner, and I could hear this beautiful sound coming from the other, and they played it day after day in the moonlight. I'll hold you close. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. The singer was Billy Fury. I didn't know it was Billy Fury, but it was fantastic. And when I eventually heard the full record in a record shop, it was mind-blowing. It was a wonderful experience, and it was in that building there. at least it's still here. Should be grateful for that, I suppose. It's worth just having a quick look at the grammar school. When we were 11, we took the 11 plus. Of course, I didn't even know what it was about, so I had a nose chance. A tortured boy doesn't do very well. I came bottom of the class. This lad, he passed his 11 plus. His name was John Wayne, and he was one of the few people who was really quite civil to me at Monday Street. And so when he saw me, he'd left. He was at the grammar school. I said, "How are you getting on there?" And he said, "Oh, okay, fine." And he was talking to me in a very civil way. It's just that little bit of kindness that was so important. It's hard to explain how much it meant to me. Well, in Hena school days, I actually mentioned John Wayne, and I said, "I wonder where he is now." Well, he read the book. He was living in the south of England, and he read the book. And, he came to see me and Terry, back in Belper. And that was really nice, and so it was nice that I'd said, "Oh, I wonder where you are now," and there he was. So, but he was obviously very sorry to hear that I'd had such trouble. He became a head teacher himself, in fact, at the village called Stanley Common, where I was born, for a while, for some years, apparently.